Thank you very much, Chris. It's one of the great truths. Never play poker with a man called Doc, nor, it would seem, play craps with a research scientist called Chris. Our final speaker this afternoon flew in from San Francisco just several hours ago and claims to have got at least 2 hours sleep over Greenland, so he'll be in tip-top form. He's going to be talking about the Internet of Things. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Larry Cable, Architect and Vice President of Oracle. Larry.
Thanks. Well, I'll start off with an apology. I'm not that Larry from Oracle. I'm one of the other ones. And thanks for telling everyone that I'm a little bit jet lagged. I did only have 2 hours of sleep over Greenland. So if I blather, just humor me and we'll get through this as quickly as possible. So now my job, well, let's see. Last year when I spoke at this event, I was principal architect at Salesforce, building copies of Amazon Web Services technology there, and here we are a year later, and I'm back at Oracle again. New boss, same as the old boss, working on Oracle Public Cloud, and it's been an interesting transition going back to Oracle. You know, being a very large enterprise software company, trying to reinvent all of its significant business and technologies into the cloud. And I'm basically involved in moving all of that software that you know and love and have spent a lot of money on to deploy in on-premise and move that into the cloud. But that's not my only job. You know, earlier on today, I think it was Gareth from SkyTracker, you know, put the map up of Silicon Valley with all of the little company logos up there, and you know, we talked about ecosystem, and working in Silicon Valley is quite an interesting experience on a variety of dimensions. But one of the most interesting ones is that you're in this very compressed melting pot of an ecosystem, and so you know when you've been there as long as I have, I've been there for about 25 years, you have worked with people who work everywhere. So, you know, I have lunch with people that are at Google, Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, even occasionally Microsoft, Amazon, the list is endless. And of course, we spend all of our time talking about either what we're doing or what the other guys are doing or what some third party is doing, because that's really how we figure out who's doing what and how we move the industry forward. And so really what I want to talk to you about is this emerging notion of the Internet of Things, and actually look at it from the perspective of how Internet of Things, as it evolves, is going to potentially impact us as individuals and the things that are, you know, very personal to us. So last year, when I talked a lot about cloud and big data and mobile, I threw up this one slide in the morass of 50-odd slides that I put together for a 45-minute talk. To talk about the Internet of Things. And very much at that time, the kind of state of the art, or where the ecosystem was with the Internet of Things, was really around this notion of machine-to-machine connectivity. So, you know, at Salesforce, we were working with both GE, Tesla, and Toyota to basically gather telemetry from cars and from fan jet engines, and pump those into big data databases, and then do you know, analytics over those, and you know, pump that data back into the customer relationship management system and stuff like that. And then, you know, you have other technologies, like they've locked all of the heads off the parking meters in San Francisco that you used to search your pockets for 25 cents to feed, and they've replaced them, you know, with these new electronic meters that you can swipe your credit card in, and that, you know, does a transaction to your credit card company to pay for the meter. And of course, we have, the FedExes and UPSes of this world, connecting their trucks and your parcels to the internet. And of course, we also had the notion of smart grid technologies. And then, of course, there was some emergent personalization around the Nest thermostat and the Jawbone Up. So where are we going? So a year later, let's talk about some of the things that have occurred in the industry with the major players, and then we'll take an assessment of what the implications are of those events on the future of IoT. So I'm pretty certain that we all saw the iPhone 6 and 6S launch a couple of weeks ago. You might ask yourself, what has that got to do with the Internet of Things? And we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute, but if you look at some of the hardware capabilities of these phones, there's definitely some very strong indications that Apple are going to get very serious about you as an individual carrying an iPhone becoming a thing on the internet. Associated with that launch, they announced the Health Kit, which is a set of APIs on the iOS platform for integrating essentially fitness applications and telemetry into the Apple iPhone devices. They had announced a Home Kit, which is a very interesting innovation, an indication of where Apple want to go in the future, introducing essentially an API and a set of platform APIs and frameworks to allow you to essentially integrate a broad variety of things in the home into the Apple ecosystem. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but one of the famous historical shortcomings of Apple is their inability to open up their technologies and their platforms, and therefore they really constrain the third-party ecosystem. And this is, I think, one indicator here, because they're basically forcing the third-party hardware providers to fit into the iPhone ecosystem and infrastructure with the Made for iPhone and iPad licensing programs. We'll talk in a minute about Apple Pay. You might ask yourself, what's that got to do with the Internet of Things? We'll get to that in a second. And of course, we talked some of the other speakers talked about Apple Watch earlier, and that has an impact also on IoT for the individual. Our good friends in Mountain View were not sitting on their laurels. Google launched the Google Wear platform, which is essentially a set of APIs as part of the Android platform that allows you to introduce wearable devices and integrate those with Android phones. They have a very early announcement of the Google Auto platform, and we'll talk about that later. There's the Google Fit platform, essentially the equivalent of Apple's Health Kit. And not releasing a Google Home API, but definitely the acquisition of Nest and Nest's subsequent product developments and new companies, and Dropcam and the Works with Nest program is also very significant. A couple of other things that haven't happened yet. Obviously, there's a new phone due out fairly soon, the Nexus 6 replacement, or the Silver hardware line, and a new version of the Android operating system. So it'll be interesting to see what those deliver in terms of new technologies that might integrate with IoT. And of course, there's the Google Glass Explorer platform and a potential Google Watch also. Excuse me. Interestingly enough, one of the big players that has not appeared on the radar here is Amazon. They're missing in action. And I'm kind of discounting the Fire phone, as that seems to be dead on arrival. But I think it makes a lot of sense when you think about what Amazon is in the business of doing. They want to sell you things or sell you content, and so they're not really interested. I think at this point in time, at least, we'll see whether competitive pressures force them to do something in this space to really aggressively move into the IoT space. They obviously have the set-top box technology, but that doesn't really apply in the space of things. Talking about the ecosystem, it's always a good measure to see where a technology is going by looking at the small startups and medium-sized companies and large companies to see what they're doing in that space. And you look at companies like Cisco, who all of a sudden have leapt on the IoT bandwagon, and there's no surprise there because they want to be the arms dealer in this particular war and make sure that all of the networking technologies that we use to create this Internet of Things have a Cisco brand on them. Needless to say, enterprise companies such as Oracle have an interest in all of the server-side technology and the cloud-side technology to enable an Internet of Things. SAP's there, IBM's there, pretty much everybody who has a vested interest in that sort of enterprise server-side technology have a strategy to support that. Salesforce, my previous employer, they have an IoT effort there. Again, this is mostly focused not on the Internet of personal things, but more on the Internet of machine-to-machine communications. Then there are a bunch of smaller companies like PubNub and Arrayant, who are in the business of essentially creating what I would describe as IoT clouds. So they're providing the central infrastructure, the platform as a service, to allow you as a device developer or a thing developer to integrate into it. And then we have other companies like obviously Logitech, a couple of new startups, Revolve and SmartThings, who are building universal remote controls. Then we have Chewy, who are doing biometrics for the Internet of Things, so you can lock and unlock your home using biometric information. We've got Schlage, who are a major lock manufacturer, who are creating Internet addressable locks. And of course, we've got companies like GE and Philips as well. And I've also got a toy to show you shortly from Lifex. So with all of this movement in the industry, both with the largest companies and through to new startups, let's ask ourselves some questions about what's going to happen in this space. Before we do that, I'd like to sort of reiterate a point made by our earlier speaker about the notion of the smartphone. When you look at today's smartphones, the typical hardware spec is a 32 or 64-bit multi-core processor system running somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 gigahertz. It's not typically an Intel instruction set, but it's a pretty capable CPU. It typically has multi-core graphic processing units capable now of driving ultra-high definition output with somewhere between 1 to 3 gigabytes of memory, somewhere between 16 and 128 gigabytes of flash storage. They're now all Bluetooth 4 or Bluetooth Low Energy enabled. They have Wi-Fi on them. A lot of the phones now have LTE Cat 4, which is capable of generating up to 150 megabits a second of data onto your device. They all pretty much now have near-field communications on them. If we look at the iPhone 6, there's actually a separate motion processor on the iPhone 6 that supports various 3D accelerometers, barometers, motion capture devices. We've got GPS on it. We've got biometrics devices that scan your fingerprints. It's really, as we said earlier, it's really not a phone anymore. We should stop calling them smartphones. They're mobile computers. And if I took one or two of these line items out and took a survey of the audience what sort of computer you thought this was, it's pretty close actually to the spec of a fairly recent laptop computer when you think about some of the capabilities in terms of the processor, memory, storage, etc. So we actually have a very powerful computing device that all of us carry. And it's this device that's essentially going to create the platform that is going to turn each of us as an individual and the things around us into a thing in the Internet of Things. So we can do things like find out where you are. We can figure out where you're going and where you were. We can determine who you are and what you're doing or what you're not doing or what you're going to do. We can have things on you. We've talked about wearable devices such as watches and Google Glass. And we can detect things around you. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Ibeacon technology. It's essentially an active analog of RFID. So it's a small Bluetooth low-energy device that is capable of essentially delivering a unique identifier to another Bluetooth device. And so you can plant these iBeacons around. You can get them for your keychain. You can get them to plug into the wall. And basically, when you get close by one of these, you can read this UUID from the device. And then you can build an app that can go out to a central registry and ask that registry, where is this UUID? And what additional metadata do you have? So it's almost a little bit like, not quite the retinal scan technology in Minority Report, but it's about as close as we can get. So you can imagine having, a mobile device. You walk into a store, you walk past an iBeacon, it identifies the iBeacon, goes to the central registry, discover that that's next to the, the pink sock part of the department store, and it flashes up, an ad on my phone that says Larry Pink Socks are on sale today. So, click here if you want to buy them. Other things that it can connect to are your car and your home, and things that you care about, family, possessions, pets. There's a huge number of small startup companies in the US now that will sell you a dog collar that's got a GPS locator on it, and it basically can send the location of your dog to your phone, and you can actually geofence your dog so that if it left the yard, it'll send an alert to your phone saying the dog's go out the yard again, that kind of thing. So we really have this ability now to turn you and all of the things around you that you're interested in into a thing, and then integrate that into the larger sort of ecosystem of the internet. Let's talk a little bit about wearables. I have to agree, this whole idea of the wristwatch, the killer app for the smartwatch seems to be that you don't have to take your phone out of your pocket or your handbag, and I'm not really sure that is enough of a killer app to really make these devices stick. Google Glass, it's a really cool idea. I have to admit, I did purchase one a couple of months ago, and shortly after I ordered it, I read an article about a couple of incidents that happened in San Francisco with people who were wearing Google Glass in public, and discovered in the article that a common and pardon my French, a common name for people wearing Google Glasses in San Francisco are glass holes. And I decided that I really, life was hard enough without becoming a glass hole. So I sent it back. Talk about peer group pressure. I think there are some interesting indicators about the notion of what the future of mobile computing is going to be at the personal level. So I think what we're going to see is an increasing decomposition of your mobile computing devices. So we have Bluetooth low energy, which allows us, to create a number of separate devices that you can distribute about yourself or your home or your car and connect those into a central computing device, which would, in this model, be your phone. We can attach sensors. We can have separate displays. I mean, that's the primary role of Google Glass, is to move the display from the screen in your phone to a heads-up display in your glasses. We have cameras that you can do image recognition on, and you can do speakers and microphones to do voice recognition and other sound analysis effects. So I think what we're going to see is this decomposition and addition of additional devices and sensors to the person. I think the real immediate business opportunity that Apple and Google see in particular is in the space of fitness and health. With your phone and a plethora of wearables, you can really determine some pretty insightful but basic physiological metrics from your human body. You can determine heart rate. You can even do fairly rudimentary ECG activity. You can determine blood temperature, blood pressure, sleep-wake patterns, activity. And so basically what Google and Apple have done with HealthKit and Google Fit is basically created a programming framework that will allow people to build applications and integrate devices into those applications that will be able to capture all of this information. While I think the initial opportunity, if you're a runner or whatever, and obviously companies like Nike are very clearly interested in this sort of technology. I think eventually the real value and probably the real business opportunity is actually in remote diagnosis and treatment. That we know about the almost epidemic levels of type 2 diabetes in the developed world. You can imagine a system that is capable. In fact, I think Google are experimenting with a contact lens that's capable of detecting blood sugar, so you don't actually have to pull a blood sample and analyze it. So you can imagine in the not too distant future being able to have an application that continuously monitors your blood sugar, not only logs that information back to your doctor and dietitian, but that can also alert you that your blood sugar is either very high or very low. And in the case of some chronic diabetics who have insulin pumps on them, where they have to vary the level of insulin in their bloodstream, you can imagine the whole system in an automatic feedback loop determines that your blood sugar is too low, so the insulin pump gives you a shot of insulin. So there's a variety of diseases that, the asthma example is another one where having that automatic infrastructure from sensor all the way back to your GP is incredibly valuable. One of the announcements that I think kind of got lost a little bit in the hype of the iPhone 6 and the iWatch announcement was Apple Pay. Now, you might ask yourself, what has this got to do with the Internet of Things? The numbers associated with this, I think, are staggering, and there is a huge opportunity for Apple. Apple currently has something like 800 million iTunes accounts. That means they have 800 million credit cards on file. And they have basically partnered with all of the major credit card companies and banks. They have something like, I believe, they claimed over 200,000 outlets or businesses with a total of 200,000 outlets signed up for the launch of this. And having finally NFC enabled the phones, they've basically got this huge opportunity to snatch the electronic payments at point of sale business in a huge way. It's a far more secure system than handing your credit card over, when you go to the Waitrose or whatever. Because the way that the system works is, first of all, you have multi-factor authentication on your mobile device. So your mobile device knows that it's actually you because you scan your fingerprint to unlock it. You go up to the NFC terminal. You pass your phone in proximity to the NFC terminal. What the NFC terminal gets is a one-time anonymous transaction ID. The vendor doesn't get your credit card information, so there's no way for a target to lose a couple of million customers worth of credit card information when hackers from Russia break into their database. All that they get is this one-time transaction ID. That one-time transaction ID is sent to the credit card company, and the credit card company then processes the transaction against your credit card, which is on file both with them and with Apple, and Apple take a slice of the business. I think, I don't know what your personal experience is with these point-of-sale electronic systems are. The Google Wallet platform has been out in the US for quite some time now. It's claimed that they have about 20 million users of that now. It's not, I think, massively successful. But I think with Apple's customer base of 800 million accounts and the adoption of the iPhone 6 platform over time, we'll see that Apple Pay will turn the process of buying things on its head. And interestingly enough, I think, very topical news only this week, I think as a reaction to that, we see that eBay is looking to spin off PayPal, and I would be not surprised if we see PayPal be acquired by another major company and then extended to be a payment processing system for mobile devices. So I think that in terms of how this might impact us over the years, I think eventually we're going to see increasingly more of these cashless and cardless electronic funds transfers. So we've talked a little bit about us, but let's talk about our homes. This is already an expanding market. We've seen the Nest thermostat, which is capable of heating and cooling your home. Of course, you don't need much AC in Scotland. Don't need actually much AC in San Francisco either, but everywhere else does. You can see it in control of home lighting. Increasingly, we're seeing home security systems and access systems use internet technologies. And despite the questionable value of an internet refrigerator, we are seeing some smart appliances. And clearly, this is a market that both Apple and Google want to be at the center of an ecosystem. And it's I think it's going to be a bit of a Wild West gold rush. So let's talk about Nest, because Nest is probably the company that's driving this at the moment. And they actually have a proof of concept around the Nest thermostat technology, which is, I think it's pretty compelling. So obviously, the Nest thermostat, it's connected to the cloud. It has a set of sensors on it that can determine if you're at home, whether you're in the room, whether you're not in the room. And that information, and it also has a learning capability, so it can detect patterns, etc. And all of that, of course, goes back to the Nest cloud. And so what they've done is they've basically started to create an ecosystem around the Nest thermostat, basically taking it a little bit beyond a simple thermostat and starting to have it be essentially the center of a home automation system. So the proof of concept that they have here is that they've worked with Mercedes-Benz. So you can be driving home, stuck in rush hour traffic on 101, which I normally am. I don't have a Mercedes though. And from an app in the car's automotive software can connect to your personal Nest through the Nest cloud, and it can tell the Nest thermostat that you're going to be home in 35 minutes or however long. It uses the car's navigation system to determine the time to home. And so based upon some rules that you might have set up, the car can tell the Nest thermostat that you'll be home in 35 minutes, and the thermostat can adjust the temperature in the house so that when you get home, it's at the temperature that you want it to be. They also have integrated some electronic garage door openers. I know we don't have lots of those in Scotland, not as many as we have in California, but the other thing that you can do is you can have the garage door opener tell the thermostat that the garage door's opened, and the thermostat can then tell your Wi-Fi controlled lights to turn on, which is also kind of funky. And this is actually, if I can get out of the box, because I didn't take the sticky stuff off of it. I'll show it to you later. But anyway, this is actually a Wi-Fi connected LED bulb. It has a small system on a chip in it. It has a Wi-Fi transceiver on it. It has a full IPv4 and v6 stack on it, and basically you can, and it sounds like a lot of overkill actually. It's a couple of guys in Australia that came up with this idea, and they crowdfunded it. I actually know one of the guys. I've known him for years. He's quite a character. And so, yeah, basically you can connect over the internet to your lights at home and do all sorts of cool things. Not just turn them on and off, but you can like put it into lava lamp mode. If you've been out on a hot date and you're feeling lucky, you can just pop your phone out and go lava lamp mode. And when you get there, when you get home, it's the correct ambience and also temperature as well. So the other thing that they've done with this actually, which is kind of fun, is another Nest product they have is a carbon monoxide and smoke detector. And so if the Nest smoke detector detects smoke or carbon monoxide, it will send a message to all of the lights in your house, and they'll flash red at you. So it's kind of, you go to DEFCON 3 or whatever. The other thing that they do, they have a wireless camera system called DropCam, and when certain events occur, the Nest thermostat can tell the DropCam to capture images and send those or save those to your server. I think the really interesting one, and this is where the smart appliance comes in, is that we have smart grids, both for gas and electricity, and some of the more enlightened utility providers who have deployed this smart grid technology actually are starting to use the data that they're capturing. So they have data from the actual state or national grid. So they know that, everyone goes and puts the kettle on at 6:30 at night, and so they see a spike in the peak load at that time of night. And so they have all this information, down even to, certain things happen at night. In San Francisco, we get slightly more sunlight because the sun sets in the Pacific and we're not blocked, versus Palo Alto, where they've got the hills. So people will turn their lights on sooner in the valley than people will turn their lights on in San Francisco, because we get more sunlight for longer. So they can have all this information about how various loads occur across the electrical network. So what they're now doing is they're pushing that information out into the Nest cloud, so they can tell my Nest thermostat, for example, that we've got some peak load on, and the Nest thermostat, you can set up some rules to tell, and this is actually a real smart appliance. It's not pretend it actually exists. Whirlpool, who's a major appliance manufacturer in the US, have smart washing machines and tumble dryers, and so basically you can set up the washing machine and tumble dryer to be activated when the load on the electrical network in your area is at its lowest, right? Or it will turn them off if there's a spike in the load. So they're able to optimize your usage of electricity. And I think this is a really interesting idea. I think this is really going to grow where we have these sort of think globally, act locally sort of feedback loops that turn your home into a slightly more smarter home. They've also integrated with some of these early sort of first generation fitness devices. So with the Jawbone and Up, when it detects that you wake up in the morning, it can tell the Nest thermostat that you're awake, and the thermostat will turn the heating on. So, you know, it's a pretty cool proof of concept how you can link all of these technologies up. And I think the key to this is the fact that, you know, Google bought these guys. It's pretty clear to see where this is heading when that Nest cloud becomes a Google cloud, and more of the devices that are in your home or attached to your home have a, you know, powered by or, you know, connected to Google stuck on them. There's a bit of a problem with this though, because this is a re-emerging technology space, and whenever technology emerges or re-emerges, there's always a bunch of bright people who decide that they know how to do it better, and so you end up with a lot of competition, which gives you a lot of choice, which you think is good, but when you're actually at the end of that food chain, it's actually a bit of a pain in the ass. And the problem with protocols here is that there's a whole bunch of really smart ways that you can connect your smart light bulb to the internet. Now, just because we call it the Internet of Things, it doesn't actually mean that every device has to have necessarily its own IP stack and be IP addressable. So there's a whole bunch of pre-existing home automation protocols, X10 being one of the earliest ones over Powerline, but some of the new ones, Zigbee, which is driven by the IEEE, and Z-Wave, which is another one driven by some device manufacturers. So we've got all of these different ways of attaching devices to the internet and controlling them. Insteon is a transition protocol that is trying to pull some of the earlier generation home automation protocols into the internet space. But the problem here is, of course, you basically have to make a technology choice, or you're going to end up with a household full of appliances that have a lot of trouble talking to each other. Of course, this is obviously a business opportunity if you want to build a little box that talks all of these and does all of the integration. So don't use that idea. I'm working on it. I'm not actually. I will share an idea that I've had for about 15 years with you and knock yourself out with it later. But anyway, let's move on to your car. This is the last one. So we've talked about ourselves as things on the internet, our homes as things on the internet. What about our cars? You know, next to the home and office, we probably spend most of our time in our cars. I certainly do when I'm commuting to and from work. And increasingly, they're becoming more and more connected, and increasingly, we want them to be more and more connected. And I would say that the first generation of connectivity was very private. And what I mean by that is basically very closed technology. You know, my car has a built-in cellular connection. It can phone home to the dealership and tell them that, you know, I need to go in and get an overpriced oil change. And it can tell me, it can send me an email saying that it's scheduled that for me. So there's things like service notifications, concierge and SOS services. You even get some limited traffic updates and even some limited internet access to maybe read emails or, you know, do internet searches. But it's very tightly integrated to the car, and it's not very accessible, it's not extensible by third parties, etc. And we're already starting to see, I think it was Chevrolet this week or last week in the US announced that they're the first US manufacturer to bring a complete LTE Wi-Fi hotspot into their cars. So, you know, your kids can sit in the back seat and stream Netflix video to their iPads you know, while you sit in the front seat, so they won't ask you if they're there yet. Now, I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing, but the fact that you were able to have more access to the internet from your car, I think is somewhat inevitable. I sometimes, when I'm driving to and from work, I use Pandora, which is an internet music service, and we have LTE in the Bay Area, so it's pretty easy to stream music. So rather than listen to the radio, I have LTE streaming Pandora music to my phone, and then it Bluetooths that to the car's speakers. It's all a wee bit high-tech and geeky, but you can see that you know, as cars become more and more connected to the internet, there's more and more opportunities for them to become interesting things. The primary barrier, I think, to rapid adoption and evolution of this technology in the car is manufacturer brand ownership. They've pretty much every manufacturer on the planet always wants to keep control of the brand. So the user interface, all of the capabilities for your Audi, your BMW, your Ford has to come up with the Ford logo or the BMW logo when you start the car up. So they're very, very attached to that piece of real estate and that set of features and technology. And that's a real barrier, I think, to the evolution and adoption of your car as becoming a thing on the internet. But I think the force in the ecosystem that's going to make this change is that customers are going to demand better and seamless integration between the mobile platform of your choice, whether it's iOS or whether it's Android, and your car. And there's going to be a bit of a turf war here. This is an analysis done earlier this year by the BBC website and in their autos section, showing the distribution of car manufacturers and their intent to support a particular platform. So you see, we've got Ferrari and BMW have had a long association with Apple. We're seeing, Bentley and Renault and VW heading towards the Android platform, and then there's a bunch of people in the middle who haven't quite decided where they're going to be. But we're going to have another Google Android versus iOS fight in this space. And I think that the motivation for this, and it's interesting that I mentioned Waze too, is I don't know how much you love or hate your own car's navigation system if your car has one. They all are pretty much horrible, I think. Waze is this really nice, it's essentially social navigation system. So this is a screenshot actually from earlier this week. I live where the kind of little blue lozenge is up there in San Francisco, and this is 400 Oracle Parkway, which is the office that I'm in. And I just, tried to figure out what the traffic was like, and so I did a route search on that to get the different routes. So there's 3 different routes that I can take, all the way down 101, all the way down 280, or 280, 380, 101. And you can see that these are other Waze users who are currently in the system. You can see there's a bunch of incidents on the various routes. You can see that some people are not. This is a road, 4-lane highway, and someone's doing 11 miles an hour. And you can also see where our boys in blue are. So this is a much, I think, more engaging and satisfying user interface than the navigation system that BMW provides. And so I think that this sort of application, which is there's both an Android and iOS version of this, but I think it's this sort of application that's going to drive the car manufacturers into opening up their platforms. Google are already there. They've already pre-announced that they're working on a version of the Android platform called Google Auto, which will integrate a lot of these features. It will also provide you with, the Google speech recognition system, which I think is a great improvement over any of the other speech recognition systems that you're ever going to find in a car. So I think overall what we're going to see is we're going to see the in-car computational platform open up from a closed system that is owned entirely by the particular car manufacturer, and it'll become either an iOS platform or an Android platform, and you'll be able to develop apps that not only run on your phone but also run in your car. So let's just sort of wrap up with some of the issues with things, because we're not issue-free here. Security and privacy. Obviously, if we're collecting, even if we're just collecting your heartbeat, we want to collect that information securely, and we want to maintain the privacy of that information so that, your boss can't tell when he's having a negative or a positive effect on you, when he's giving you a dressing down for doing something or not doing something by looking at your heart rate monitor, or your insurance company is hacking into this information and increasing your healthcare costs accordingly. So there's the issue of securing the information, the information between the sensors and the device, and then maintaining the data privacy on the device and in the cloud. There's already actually been a number of cases. There's one, the Nest thermometer. There's a guy who has been going to Best Buy, which is like a big box store in the US, buying up a whole bunch of Nest thermostats, hacking them, flashing new firmware into them, and then returning them to Best Buy. And then some poor unsuspecting customer comes along, buys the thermostat, installs it in their home, and this hacked software dials back to this guy. Fortunately, he's not doing anything unethical, but it's just trying to prove that these systems are hackable. So there's the security and privacy issue. Lastly, there's what we call the universal remote problem, or interoperability. And I think as more and more devices and things become controllable, there's an explosion of controllers. So, with the Nest device for the thermostat, there's an app on your phone for that. For the Lifex bulb, there's an app on your phone for that. There really needs to be some sort of platform integration so that basically you can integrate all of your controllable devices into a single application and user interface, so that you don't have to switch between 5 apps just to unlock the door in the house, close the garage door, turn the lights on, and run a bath. And so there's another number of companies, Logitech, a well-known name in the sort of remote control industry, working on that. And so with that, thanks. That's my take on the future of the Internet of Things.